Okay, in this video, it's a quick overview of how the Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram 5.7 HEMI MDS system works, what it looks like, components. So right here, you have a MDS solenoid. There's 4 of them. Cylinders 1, 4, 6, and 7 are the cylinders that will cut out in 4-cylinder mode when these solenoids are on. After the MDS solenoids, the other components in the system are going to be the MDS solenoid jumper harness, like you see here. That attaches to the main engine harness, basically feeding power and ground on 2 wire connectors to those solenoids. Now, after this jumper harness, another component, the main components are the lifters themselves. The 4 you see there are one of 4 components. This is the front, left, and you have the 2 holes on the right 2 lifters. Those holes are for the MDS solenoid, or MDS cylinder, so cylinder 1 in this case. Now those smaller holes you see on the left of the left 2 lifters, those are aftermarket lifters. The factory ones won't have those smaller holes, and my understanding is those little holes on the lifters themselves are for improving oiling. The aftermarket's attempting to strengthen or increase longevity, hoping those needle bearings don't wear out in the rollers, which is where a lot of the issue starts with the cam lobe wear. And so you'll see that only with the aftermarket lifters, the extra holes added. Okay, so here's a front view of the Gen 3 5.7 HEMI, and create a quick schematic of what the oiling system looks like for the MDS. Now, this isn't for any other part of the oiling system, just the MDS. So we have our oil pump, and then after oil pump, we'll have basically oil going to our oil filter. Now, when that oil exits the oil filter, right in that area on the block, you have your oil pressure sending unit on the 5.7 HEMI, and that's going to detect oil pressure pretty early on, right after the oil pump and oil filter. So right now, and the brown lines are going to indicate where the oil is going for the MDS system, not the rest of the oiling system. So it is a 2-part oiling system. For the lifters, you have the push rod side, and then you have the MDS solenoid side to lubricate the lifters. So really, most of the lubrication is happening through the MDS solenoid lifter bores on the side. You'll see that in a minute. But so our oil pressure is basically looking like that, feeding oil pressure to our 4 MDS solenoids. And then you see them here in the valley under the intake. That oil is going to hit those solenoids, and then we'll be exiting the solenoids with or without the solenoids on. So believe it or not, we have oil pressure even to the lifter bores, where you see the brown lubricating the entire lifters, even the non-MDS lifters on the left, with the solenoid off. And in a second here, I'll give you an explanation, kind of what that looks like, what kind of pressures. Now, this is all, from what I've heard, based off of experience and research, because you can't really, unless you're the car company with a lot of nice equipment, you really can't put a gauge easily on the MDS lifter bores. Now, there are casting plugs, but the transmission's in the way to get to them. The front, the timing cover's on, the crank sprocket's in the way. But anyways, this is a power and ground MDS solenoid schematic. Lifter 3 to 10 psi when the solenoids are off is what I was told. This is the inlet and outlet of that solenoid. And then in a second here, you're going to see what the pressures are, I'm told, with the MDS solenoids on. When they're on, you're going to end up seeing pressures close to main oil pump pressure, which is 30 to 60 psi when the solenoids are on. I believe these solenoids are not duty cycled. They're constant ground. And then the PCM, using a transistor, powers up all 4 at the same time, full 12 volts instead of pulse width modulation. I'm pretty sure on that, but don't quote me. So we have 30 to 60 psi to those lifter bores for the MDS and non-MDS lifters when the computer wants 4-cylinder mode. And that added pressure at that point is going to push on these pins you see on this crude schematic I created, and those pins are going to collapse, and now the lifter with heavy-duty springs in the MDS lifters is going to basically not allow the valve spring or valves to open on the engine, and you're going to have a collapsing effect, and it's just going to oscillate back and forth, never moving the push rod past or far enough to open the valves. So the valves themselves and the valve springs on the heads are stronger than the springs in the MDS lifter, and so when the cam lobe starts pushing the hydraulic lifter up, MDS lifter, it collapses. Pretty simple system. This is what the MDS solenoid looks like on a generation 3 that we just talked about. The bottom screen is the inlet, the side is the outlet to the lifter bores. That's the old one. Now right here, you're going to see a magnet. There's a magnet on the Gen 3, I don't know about the other generations, that can collect metal, and I couldn't tell you what's normal and what's not, but this thing had a previous cam failure. I would imagine that those are, there for a reason, and the screens are there for a reason. Now, if I was a car company and I suspected that, metal could be getting into the solenoids, adding a magnet isn't a bad idea. So it's good to have magnets there, but it also makes me wonder why they added magnets. Did they know that, there's going to be potential issues with their system, and so they felt they had to add a magnet to, the inlet of each solenoid? I really don't know, but I'd love to hear feedback, see what you guys think. That bore you see there, that's the MDS solenoid bore. Again, there's 4 of them. And on the bottom, that cutout, that's the outlet feeding oil to the lifter bores themselves. So, interesting.